everybody? Welcome back. It is episode 28 of Betting the W. I'm Max Clifford here by myself this week. Once again, Kate and Damon have taken off and left me behind. Don't know if it says more about them or me that I am always here, but I'm always here for you. And I've got another episode for us today. I'm going to keep it short because Damon and Kate aren't here. Just going to give you some tailing, some fading, and maybe a couple picks for this weekend's WNBA slate, and we'll be back with a full episode next week. Without further ado, there's a lot that I want to get into, so let's talk about it now. First off, I'm going to start with fading because this is the best story of the week, the biggest story of the week, the news that you are caught up on if you're a big college softball fan. Jordy Bahl, the star for the Oklahoma Sooners, the most outstanding player from the tournament, their ace pitcher, entered the transfer portal this week and announced that she will be going to Nebraska. Now, Jordy is originally from Nebraska. She had originally committed to the Cornhuskers out of high school before flipping to the Sooners. So the destination isn't a surprise. It's a huge surprise that she's leaving Oklahoma. And I am technically fading Oklahoma softball. If Damon were here, he'd give me a look. Do I think that this makes them not the favorite anymore? No, but they were the best team of all time this year, and they are losing their two best pitchers. They're losing Ball, and they're also losing Alex Storako, who was the ace at Michigan before she transferred to Oklahoma and was the number one pick in the Women's Pro Fast Pitch League. She's turning pro. Ball's going to Nebraska. They're returning a lot of talent. Don't get me wrong. They still are going to have the best roster in the country, but they're losing their top two pitchers, which is a little concerning. Obviously, Patty Gasso is a master of recruiting and will probably go get the second and third best pitchers out of the transfer portal, but the number one pitcher in the portal is going the opposite direction. I think this might make Nebraska a contender. Didn't make a ton of noise this year, but having Jordy Bahl on your team, two-time All-American, two-time champ, it's going to be big for Nebraska, and it's just going to get people to watch Nebraska softball, which is huge, because she's not only one of the best players in the country, she's maybe the best personality. She gets fired up in that circle. You can tell when she's got emotions going. So, Jordy Bahl, big news this week, headed to the Cornhuskers, going to be something to watch this offseason. Transfer portal is already heating up, and the season hasn't even been over for a full week. Softball offseason is dominating right now. So we'll definitely be watching the transfer portal, definitely have eyes on Nebraska next year, and maybe fading Oklahoma. Maybe it's time for Clemson to step up. I don't know. We'll see next year. We'll see what things look like come next spring. But right now, Jordy Bahl on the road. That was my only fading. Positive vibes this week. Tailing, I've got horses. That would have gotten a laugh if there were other people here. I'm tailing horses because they ran the Belmont Stakes this week, one of the 3 Triple Crown races, and this year was the first year that a female trainer had a horse win. Trainers are just the people that they don't own the horse, but they train it. So I don't know a ton about horse racing, but I keep bringing up sport that I know nothing about. Called Rose Zhang the GOAT last week. Had a bit of a rocky performance this week, but that's all right. And now, the first female trainer to win the Belmont this week. None of the horses are female, though, as far as I know. I think all racehorses are male. I don't know why that is, but first female trainer. Way to go. Making history at the Belmont this year. I'm also tailing. There's another one that was for Damon being here. A Philly WNBA team. We've talked a lot about this. We don't think that Philly is going to be the next expansion city, but the Wings played at the Liberty last weekend. It was a great game, great matchup, and Maddie Seeger's family showed out. There were like 200 of her closest family and friends at the Barclays Center, and they're from Pennsylvania. And if Philly got a WNBA team and they could secure Maddie Seeger's contract, they could fill up a fifth of the stadium just with Maddie Seeger's friends and family and Villanova fans. There's a market just within that group of people there. So Maddie Seeger's to Philly whenever Philly gets a team. I'm calling it now. Sid Colson's Twitter on Monday night I wrote just that, so we'll leave it at that. I don't remember what she was tweeting. Let's look it up. I'm also tailing Paige Beckers and her comeback. Paige, if you don't know, was injured last season, and just it was a real bummer to see her out because I'm confused about why I wrote that down. I'm tailing Paige Beckers. Paige Beckers, right up there, is one of the most exciting players in college basketball. And she's going to be coming back this year, God willing, knocking on every wood surface I own that everyone in college basketball stays healthy. But she's been posting videos. She's back to working out. She's back on the court, running drills. She has that big brace off her knee. It's just a sleeve now, looking good. And it's just going to be good for the game to have all the stars healthy at the same time. Fingers crossed. Because you could argue that Paige Beckers was the face of women's college basketball as soon as she stepped in as a freshman, lit everything up in that bubble. And then you could argue it kind of transferred to Aaliyah Boston when she won Defensive Player of the Year and Player of the Year in the same season. And then this past year, it was, for the most part, Caitlin Clark, with also Angel Reese kind of nipping at her heels. So we are going to have 3 of those 4 players back and healthy this year. I think they're all friends, and we're also going to have Haley Van Lith too with Angel Reese. It's just going to be a star-studded basketball season. I'm already getting pumped for college basketball because we're going to have all these awesome players, hopefully healthy at the same time, playing the game. And it's going to be kind of a battle to see who's going to be the top dog, because there are a lot of candidates for Player of the Year this year that are legit contenders. So I'm excited to see Caitlin. I'm excited to see Paige, Angel, Haley, all of them. They're all going to be back, and I'm just so pumped for college basketball based on what I've been seeing. Those are my tailing and fading. Those are the big news from the week. I do want to talk some WNBA because this week was absolutely wild. It was huge for underdog bettors. It seemed like every dog was having their day this entire week. So let's go back to last weekend after we made our picks. So we had a pretty normal day on Friday, but then we did have the Sparks beating the Sky last Friday, which was a surprise for sure. And then we had, we had the Lynx beating the Sparks, which is a big surprise as well. And then on Tuesday, the Fever beat the Mystics. The Fever are getting hot. They are very hot, and Aaliyah Boston is looking, just cementing her case even further for Rookie of the Year, and is becoming one of the true stars of the game already. That same night, we had the Dream upset the Liberty in New York. New York has been struggling. It's been a real surprise to see all the trouble that they've had. Maureen Johannes had a big game in that game, kept him in it late, but the Dream just pulled away. And the Dream have great scorers in Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard. They're not the first team that you think of. They're not superstars, but they're a really solid team. The Dream also picked up a big win yesterday, beat the Sun at Connecticut, so a huge trip to the Northeast for the Dream. Took them to OT, had huge games from DeWanna Bonner, Alyssa Thomas, Brianna Jones, of course. Side note, I think the Sun have 3 legit MVP candidates, which might be, what holds any of one of them from standing out, but just unbelievable. And DeWanna Bonner is such a clutch shooter, so underrated, hit a huge 3 to send the game to OT, but the Dream take over in overtime. Atlanta and Indiana are 2 teams that we expected to be at the bottom of the barrel. They were the bottom 2 teams last year, I believe, and they're looking incredible so far this season. We also had on Wednesday, Sparks beat Wings. Wings only scored 61 points. The one thing that I've said about the Wings is they're good as long as they keep up that high scoring pace. Well, trouble for the Wings that they only scored 61 points. And then last night also, Fever beat the Sky. So it's just been a week of upsets, a week of craziness. I hope you were betting some underdogs this week because you made a lot of money. There was a lot of value on the board in those wins. And it's just telling me that who can we trust? Who can we really believe in at this point in the season? You got the Sun at the top of the East, but they've looked shaky. They've had a couple of upset losses. The Aces have been the only team that have been really, really consistent. They're 9-1 now. It might just be the Aces season once again. They might just be going back-to-back because I don't see anyone who's been anywhere nearly as consistent as they have been. I'm interested to see what we see from other teams down the stretch. Like I said, New York has been a big surprise in that they have let us down from the expectations that we had from them early. So going into tonight, we do have some lines. I'm looking at Phoenix Mercury at Washington Mystics. The Mystics are 11-point favorites. Now, I say this as a self-proclaimed Mystics fan. The Mystics aren't very good. The Mystics are good enough to win games, but they are not good enough to win games by a lot. They're favored by 11 points tonight. I am hammering the Phoenix Mercury spread on this one. The Mercury are really bad too. The Mercury are terrible, but they are not nearly... They're playing against the Mystics. It doesn't really matter who the team is. I would not pick the Mystics to win a game by double digits based on what I've seen so far. They don't have the offense to get it done. They might have the defense to win the game outright, but I'm going to say it's going to be a 5 or 6 point win at most. I do not think that the Mystics blow the Mercury out. They don't even come close. I am taking the Mercury to cover. I would also give the under, but the number is at 156. They know who these teams are. I still don't like the over. I'm not going to officially give out the under, but it's not going to be a high-scoring game. So if you want to bet a total, definitely take the under in that game. The other game that we have is the Lynx and the Sparks. These are two teams that I don't know what to think about either of these squads. I mean, the Sparks are 5-point favorites, which I guess is fair at home, but I don't feel comfortable betting on either of these teams. I'm not even going to touch that one. We do have some player props as well. All these from DraftKings, of course. Sophie Cunningham went off. She had a big night the other night for the Mercury in the loss that they had to, what game was that? Against the Storm, which was another upset. Sophie Cunningham went crazy. She had 21 points. She's sitting at 15.5 right now. I see her coming down a little bit. I don't think that she's going to get to that 15.5 number. I'm taking the under there. She had a big game. She's kind of due for, and a little bit of an underwhelming performance. And as for a player over, I'm going to take Shakira Austin over 13.5 points. She tends to be good for about 14, 15 points a game. She's not going to go way over, but I think 13.5, it's a safe bet to say that she'll go over that number. So only 2 games on tonight. Those are my picks. Obviously, we don't have the full betting the betting the weekend segment with Kate and Damon that we usually have. We'll be back to that next week. But as far as this weekend slate goes, it should be very exciting. I hope everyone has a great weekend. I hope you win some money on women's hoops. And keep watching out for those underdogs, man, because this has been the season of the underdogs so far. Unless, of course, they're playing Vegas. Then you can feel very safe betting on the Aces. But with that, I'm going to send you off into the weekend. Thank you for joining me. Of course, this is a very short episode. Don't worry, we'll be back in full next week.